This is Etc., featuring people and events of Texas A&M University and the surrounding community.
Hello and welcome to Etc. I'm your host Margot Kayla, and today we will be focusing on the construction taking place on Texas A&M's campus. Joining me today are Mr. Charles Sippial, Vice President of Facilities, and Dr. Ed Fry, Professor and Department Head of the Department of Physics and Astronomy. Thank you both for joining us. Now, Mr. Sippial, could you please explain to us your duties as Vice President of Facilities at Texas A&M?
Yes, as Vice President of Facilities, I'm responsible for basically everything that you can see and touch here at the university, and that includes all the facilities, includes all the roads, all the grounds, includes the cleaning of facilities. It also includes the operation of the airfield, the space management for all facilities throughout the campus. We are also responsible for all the design and construction that occurs here to make sure that it complies with our regulations and with state and federal requirements.
So on average, how many people would you say you work with on a daily basis? Well,
within the department itself, there are 1,000 people. The large number mainly encompasses the custodial and the ground staff. As you know, we have a very large campus, and we have a large ground area that we have to maintain and keep in appropriate shape for students, faculty, staff, and visitors.
Now, you had mentioned that you get to work with the construction going on campus. With that, what administrative channels does a new building plan have to go through before construction is started?
Well, we have a pretty formalized plan for a person to request the construction of a new facility. For example, the first thing that an individual or department head would have to do is to make sure that he or she has the money to construct a facility. In some cases, that department head may have to go out and get a study to find out how much they can afford, how large the facility needs to be, and once that's done, then that particular project is submitted through the campus process, through the campus CBE, as we refer to it, Council for the Built Environment. Once that council looks at and recommends approval to the president, he signs off. The project is then submitted to the system, who in turn submitted to the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board for approval. So it's a pretty straightforward process. Takes a lot longer than what I just described, but because sometimes there are different nuances that occur that the requester may have to get involved in, and it may slow things down.
But it sounds like a process that works really well for us.
Yes, it does.
Now, Dr. Fry, could you please give us an overview of your position as department head for the Department of Physics and Astronomy?
Well, as department head, I oversee the faculty in physics and astronomy, which totals about 70 right now, 7 of whom are actually top-notch astronomers, and so we've made a tremendous step forward there. And I basically oversee everything that goes on, and I'm the one that went out to find money that Chuck was referring to when you want a new building.
That's what I was about to ask about, is how, as department head, are you able to be involved with the new physics building, with the plans?
Well, actually, it all started, I made contact with George Mitchell after getting approval from the Development Foundation to talk to him, and he originally agreed to give us a little bit of money, and we worked on things, and eventually, actually at one point there was going to be a relatively small building built beside our present building, but there was need for much more space because of Gates's reinvestment plan, and which was fantastic. You know, it's made a huge difference in this university, and it made a huge difference for us, but we needed more space. And at one point, former President Gates went down with me to talk with George Mitchell, and several other people who were there with us. And at the end of that meeting, George Mitchell had agreed to give us $35 million for a new building, and Bob Gates had agreed to put in $22 million, and that's how it all.
Wow, it sounds like you were very fortunate in getting the contributors.
Yes.
With that, I mean, you briefly mentioned that you need more space. Is that because the Department of Physics is now including the astronomy also, or, I mean, why the new space, I mean, the additional space?
Well, Gates's plan was to hire 450 new faculty over a 4-year period, and physics was actually allotted 15 of those. Of the 15, 4 were specifically for astronomy, and that alone was more than a 30% increase, and you got to have place for them. And one of the reasons why you see a lot of building on campus is because it was absolutely essential for these 450 new faculty.
Okay.
Is that a correct assessment, Jack?
That is correct.
Well, I was just about to kind of go the other direction, but with so many departments on campus, I'm sure everyone wants new buildings and, you know, needs more space. How do you go about deciding which ones will start taking place first, and then what building will come next, and so on, Mr. Sippial?
We had, well, there's several ways that happens. First of all, the department head must work through his or her dean to make sure that the priorities that they are asking for are in line with the ones that the dean and the provost. Once the provost decides what priorities that he or she wants, then that particular project is submitted to, again, to the campus built environment council, and then that particular council then set about following the process I just previously described. It evaluates the project. It helps determine the cost for the project, and as well as look at the need in terms of space required as opposed to other departments on campus.
And then how do they decide where a new building will be placed on campus?
Fortunately for us, back in 2004, we were allocated funds to develop a campus master plan. This campus master plan was being finalized as Dr. Gates came on board. And Dr. Gates became very passionate about this campus master plan, and was so passionate that he had asked the regents to approve this master plan such that others coming behind him couldn't willy-nilly change the plan. So we have a plan here on campus that shows where potential building sites can go. Now, the second step to that, now that we have the campus master plan, we are developing what we call district plans. And a district plan is kind of a plan that more details specific areas on campus. For example, the area over by the Williams building, the green area that you heard a lot of discussion about, is called the East Quad. That East Quad is detailed and outlined in this district plan. And so that's how we go about doing it. And then the last stage is the design of the project. If the design of the project meets the criteria that has been previously established, then we go ahead and site it on that site. Sometimes things like utilities and other factors may prevent us from putting a particular building or a certain size building in a particular location on campus.
Now, Dr. Fry, I would definitely say that the new physics building is quite impressive. What is your favorite part about the new building, or what are you most excited about being in the new building that isn't in the old building?
Well, actually, there's a lot of things. I think one of the, my favorite part is the Cynthia Woods Mitchell Garden, rooftop garden, over the big three. We have a big 3-section lecture hall. We have a Foucault pendulum. The floor of the Mitchell Institute is done in something called Penrose tiling, which is an interesting way of laying down tiles. It is not it has no translational symmetry. You can't slide it over and ever match it up again. And there's a lot of neat physical things like that, but then actually perhaps one of the greatest things from an educational standpoint is we now have all of our lectures and undergraduate laboratories all in the same building. And that makes a huge difference, because we used to have to walk 10 to 12 minutes to get over to where the student undergraduate laboratories were. And that's a big barrier, actually. When you're hurried to spend 25 minutes walking back and forth, you just don't do it. But when it's in the same building, I think students are going to benefit tremendously from this, from that standpoint alone, because faculty are now going to be monitoring things much more closely.
Got it. Well, thank you both for joining us today. I know I'm excited to see all the new buildings going up and to especially go through the new physics building. Thank you for joining us for this segment of Etc. Next on Etc, we'll be talking with student senators about the new construction on Texas A&M's campus. Thank you.